So let's continue our exploration of boundaries. In the last video, we explored setting boundaries in relationships, and I'd like to provide more examples of those boundaries in everyday life. Also, speak to some of the nuances of setting these boundaries. So some practical examples in everyday life could be starting with yourself. These boundaries of perhaps blocking off time for yourself, where you literally are creating that boundary in perhaps your schedule, your daily planner, or perhaps you don't need to see it visually on a calendar like that. But it could be this boundary that you set, that before you do anything, before you start your day, before you start serving others, you have this boundary, this perhaps sacred ritual, your me time, your protected space. This might look like 10 minutes of yoga or meditation in the morning. Could look like a 30-minute walk in nature. Could look like just enjoying a nice cup of tea outside on your deck or patio, listening to the birds sing in the morning. But you see, you're setting this boundary. You're setting this protected space. It's giving your day structure. And this helps you so that you're not pouring from an empty cup, let's say. This is your time to recharge, to connect with yourself. This alone time is seen as sacred time. It's precious, and therefore it's protected. So just like you would schedule or block out time for someone who you're meeting for coffee, an old friend, or a business meeting, a client meeting, you do the same for yourself. You see that if you don't have this boundary in your life, if you don't have this precious, this protected, this sacred space for yourself, then you'll find that your day gets overrun. What do people usually say? The day just got away from me. They say something like that. It's some sort of saying that people say. I just got caught up in the day. And they're caught in now this reactivity. They're caught in the storm. Where they feel like the day's out of control. They completely lost themselves in the flow of the day that's so chaotic. So the day becomes this storm. And this is a result of not experiencing that spaciousness that you are, that sacred space. Not only are you symbolically representing that sacred space in your calendar, perhaps you just put it as me time or meditation or yoga or tea, that just helps you visualize it more. It helps you see it visually when it's actually written in a calendar like that. when it becomes like a ritual. And I hesitate to use that word because of so much of a negative connotation with the word, but let's not use the word ritual. I'm just using the word ritual to emphasize the sacredness of it. But it's more of a rhythm, right? You might call it a routine, but when you're really connected to it, you start seeing it's the rhythm of your life. You see that this flow has a rhythm to it. In order to experience that rhythm, it needs that space that contains it. And this is the divine masculine, experiencing that spaciousness that contains that flow is what structures that flow and gives it order, directs it. And that's why one can feel so lost in life, a lack of direction, a lack of purpose, because they are too passive. You see that even the most sacred spaces, even when they are so sacred, the ones that lack boundaries, the ones that lack structure, the ones that lack order, then they also lack purpose. They also can't contain that power. They lack direction. They lack leadership. These are all qualities of the divine masculine. So you start seeing that your life starts having more direction, more purpose. It's being guided. It's being led. There's more discipline when you create this rhythm. That before you're going out into the world serving, well, first you have to serve yourself. And you set up this sacred space, like having your tea outside on your front porch, listening to the birds before everyone wakes up, before the kids need you. And it's like your alone time. And when you protect that, because you recognize how precious it is, when you guard that, you see that it's actually because of filling yourself up, because you're connected to the source of what you are, that then you are then able to serve, not from emptiness, but from fullness. You're able to serve because you're overflowing. So you serve from a full cup, not an empty cup. And what most people are used to is being burnt out, exhausted, and it's because they're trying to serve from an empty cup. It's like trying to drive your car when it has no gas. So this morning rhythm of a little meditation or quiet time or a little walk in nature, whatever it is, could be anything, coloring, then you start feeling full. And it's from that fullness that then you're able to get your kids ready for school in the morning, or help your partner out the door to their job, or whatever it is. So that leadership starts within. That guidance starts within, that direction, that clarity, that purpose. that starts within. So just like you see visually that you're blocking out a time block, you've created a border around that time. It's my hour in the morning. And you guard that, you protect that. Nothing gets in the way. It becomes a non-negotiable for you. So this, putting it in your calendar, that's a sort of integration. If you haven't integrated this me time, then I'm giving you the step. A part of that step is through the integration is actually scheduling it. And then you see that it's holding yourself accountable for it. No shame, no blame if you forget, or if you're still in that integration phase, because you'll see in that integration phase, it's not like you schedule it and then it's smooth sailing. You'll see it's kind of falling off the wagon. It's you miss a day, or you forget, or you sleep in, or whatever it is. And that's part of the process of integration. So you don't beat yourself up. You don't blame, you don't shame. It's part of the process of integration. But there gets to be the point where perhaps 3 or 6 or 9 months, maybe a year, whatever it is, perhaps you just see that it's no longer something that you're trying to implement. It's your way of life. That's where it's not seen as a routine anymore. It's like your natural rhythm. It's your natural rhythm. It's just morning walks. That's just what you are. Drinking your tea outside, solitude, listening to the singing birds is just your way of life. So that you can see, it's visually, you can see how it's protecting a space in your calendar. Someone wants to meet with you. Oh, sorry, I'm unavailable at that time. Right? You're not swapping it. You're not trading it. It's your highest priority. It's now your standard. That you devote yourself to yourself. You see, you guard it, you hold the line, you protect it, like your life depends on it. Because in a way it does. It's really your connection with yourself. It's really you experiencing yourself. And like I said, this no longer is something that you're implementing. It's just your way of being. So this is an example here of integrating that routine, that rhythm in your life, for just creating a boundary, protecting your me time, your alone time. These boundaries can be so ordinary that you don't even think of them as boundaries. Perhaps right now there's already some boundaries, but maybe you just call them rules and you don't recognize them as boundaries. For example, in my home, I do all the cooking, and this is where the divine feminine is at play through nourishment, care, sustenance. Creating this meal where it's art on a plate, it's creativity at play. Literally cooking with love. The meal was an expression of love. It's made of love. Came from my heart. put it on a plate. And this is honored. This devotion to my family, and feeding their soul. It's more than food. And you see, this is so sacred. So it must be honored, respected, protected. So before we even sit down, there's a boundary before you come to the table, that in order to sit at the table, there's a boundary, which I should mention now, boundaries are thresholds. They're not walls. So the threshold is actually what creates an initiation. So it initiates you into a new way of living. It's like a milestone. Crossing this threshold is that initiation from one way of living to another, or different stages of your life. And this threshold, before sitting at the table, initiates my kids into responsibility. Got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And this then teaches them that the meal is not just something that I'm creating and putting to the table and they're eating, that actually the meal is a co-creation, that we're all responsible for something. So in order to sit at the table, you have to help set the table in some way. I don't care who does what, who's getting napkins or the cutlery or the plates. That's for them to figure out and to work out those nuances of working together as a team. But it's sort of like learning that if I want to sit at the table and eat, that there's some sort of participation. It's not passive, it's active. That you don't just sit at the table because it's expected and it becomes entitlement. But instead you see that it's respected and there's responsibility that is really what the threshold is. So it's initiating them into more responsibility. They mature through that responsibility. They grow. There's more of an appreciation for the meal when you're an active creator in that meal. It's seeing that the meal doesn't end when it's done cooking. It flows right to the table. Now there's other boundaries. There's the boundaries of no phones at the table. There's the boundaries of we don't answer the phone. You don't run away from the table to answer your phone if it's ringing. Now my kids don't have phones, my wife does, and that boundary is for her. We don't answer the door. Most of the time it's a delivery man or someone dropping something off or a kid from across the street. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. But that boundary also creates discipline. that we've created this meal together, and we're going to honor ourselves, this sacred space, that we're making time for this connection. It's like a communion. In a busy world, in our modern society, it's rare that a family sits down to eat a meal together these days. And this is something that we value. Family time. We make sure that we're home and that we are fully present, and we show up, which is related to that first boundary, that if you want to sit at the table, then you show up. And that commands your presence, your full attention. We don't have the TV playing. We don't have phones. We don't have any of those distractions. And because we've valued it and created that space, the table is seen as sacred. And that's what those boundaries, they uphold that higher standard. They uphold the sacredness of the meal. That the food that is made with love, that comes from my heart, that's a transmission. So it's not something that you're going to be eating the meal and watching TV over someone's shoulders, or going on your phone, text messaging someone, or writing an email to a colleague. All that can wait. You can put that aside. When the door rings, it's a distraction. They'll come back later. Half the time it's not important. So there's a boundary. Right? It might look like a rule, and it started off as a boundary for my wife, because there was this obligation that if the door rings, I have to go answer it. And a lot of people have this obligation. And this obligation is there for those who don't have boundaries themselves and don't see the sacredness in these mundane moments, where the distraction overrides their life and they're constantly from one distraction to the other, just reactive. Doorbell rings and all of a sudden it's like the bell that, and then you get distracted and have to go. Phone rings and I have to have the phone in my hand. Don't have that discipline. Don't have that boundary to honor this moment and see that those are distractions that are pulling you away, where you're no longer present. You feel obligated to go answer the door or the phone. And you get lost in that reactivity. And that's why boundaries, they help reclaim that which is sacred. You're reclaiming the sacredness of the family dinner by not answering the door, by not answering the phone. So there's a boundary. And it was a very bold boundary when it was being integrated. If you answer your phone or you answer the door, you got to leave the table and don't come back. It's very bold, right? But that's what a boundary does, is through the consequences of crossing the line, access is removed, right? And it's through removing access when one crosses the line of the boundaries or crosses the boundary, then you remove access. If this is not honored, this table, if this sacred space is not honored and respected, and it's then treated too casually, lacks your commitment, then it's not for you. But until you meet it with that same honor and respect and devotion that it commands, a full presence, showing up fully, being fully present, then you see that you'll experience those consequences. And it's through experiencing those consequences that that's actually what reveals the boundary. See, if it's always just sliding away to answer the door or answer the phone or on the phone or the meal, then it's sort of like someone breaching the line, and then there's no line there. It just gets to the point where the boundary is blurred and it's sort of like this trespassing. But it's until you actually implement those consequences for not respecting the boundary that then the boundary is revealed even more. Like we spoke of in the last video, this is where it gets messy, because people will test those boundaries to see if you are going to stay strong in those boundaries, uphold those boundaries, or if you're going to collapse. And that's when they kind of get the message and they say, oh wow, this boundary is real. I might not be able to see it, but because I'm experiencing the consequence, because I'm experiencing the denied access or the removal of access, then what is invisible becomes visible to that one who crossed the line. And like I said in the last video, it doesn't happen overnight. If you're someone that doesn't have any boundaries, then you start creating boundaries. It's like your partner or your family or your friends or your colleagues are kind of like, this is coming out of nowhere. This is coming out of nowhere. But the boundary is being set because of that clarity. You're getting very clear, right? You're having that realization of what, you're able to see the sacredness in the ordinary. And what you actually start doing by creating these boundaries is actually revealing the sacred right here in this mundane moment. It's not just a family dinner. It could look like that superficially, but when you're living the depth of embodiment and expression, it's not just a family dinner to you. It's much more. This is where life is so much more meaningful, symbolic, rich. And you're no longer tolerating the distortion. You're no longer tolerating people being blind to it, people forgetting it. Your boundary comes from honor, respect, love that protects the sacredness that is here now. And it's in having that boundary that you're actually revealing the sacredness of, for in this example, the dinner. And this is what starts creating that transformation in your life. The fact that you're no longer tolerating that distortion. No longer are we going to treat the sacred as casual. No longer are we going to sit at the dinner table, be distracted, not show up fully. Because if you put your heart into a meal and other people aren't fully present at the table. And you experience it as a sort of disrespect, dishonoring, and you don't tolerate that. So like I said, it can get messy. It gets messy before it gets clean, sort of say. That's how it kind of works with the boundaries. It's like anything. I'll give you another example. When you're gardening, right, you want to set a boundary, you're creating an edge, a border of your garden bed, right? You're defining a space by creating the edging, right, where the grass comes to meet the garden bed, right? Without that edge, it doesn't look as clean, right? So it's that edge that gives the aesthetic. It's a clean aesthetic. It makes it more beautiful because of that boundary, because of that edge. And it makes it very distinctive of where the grass ends and where the garden bed starts. It also functions to prevent the grass from overgrowing into the garden bed, which is then going to make it look messy. Now, when you're making that edge, when you're creating the boundary, the border of that garden bed, it's also messy right there. There's excess soil. It's spilling over. It requires cleaning it out. And that's sort of this integration phase when you're setting these boundaries and your family members or your colleagues or your friends, they're kind of learning now, sort of reteaching them, okay, and they're kind of getting a feel for it, right? This is the way that you're restoring order in your life. It's not about control. It's restoring order because you are living truth. You're restoring truth in the world, in a distorted world, in a chaotic world. You're restoring order. You've returned back to the world, but you've returned back to the world knowing who and what you are. And because of that, you're living at that standard now, the highest standard. So these boundaries are upholding everyone to those highest standards that you're living. So like I said, it's an initiation, it's a threshold. It's not exactly a wall, although we speak of it as protection, but it's more than that. There's a threshold. There's a threshold. And by going through that initiation, it's then raising others. You're initiating others to live at that level. However you see it. It's rising, it's raising others to that highest frequency. Or you can say it's rooting others in the depth that you live at. Like I said, other people, they just sit down, they'll have the dinner. But when you're experiencing it as more than a dinner, that's the depth that you're living. And you're experiencing that dinner as sacred, as a communion, as an expression of your heart. When you experience that meal as not just food on a plate, it's art, it's creativity. You're experiencing that dance where you see that it's that nourishment, it's that nurturing quality of the divine feminine radiating, pouring herself out onto the plate to then nourish, to feed the soul of your family. And the divine masculine holding the space with structure, with order, with respect and honor, honoring the divine feminine so that she can flow cooking the meal, coming to the table, the laughter, the smiles, the sharing stories at the table, that communion, it's a mirror, it's a reflection of the divine union, where the duality is experienced as that divine union. And that's just an ordinary, everyday moment of a family meal. Let me give you another example. Perhaps in your marriage or your relationship with your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your wife, you have tolerated a sort of activity, a behavior from your partner, that now you have the clarity that this is actually disrespectful, this is actually dishonoring you, this is actually abuse in some form. And it's from that clarity that you're seeing it, that then you're integrating these boundaries. So when your partner has become so comfortable snapping at you, let's say, out of anger, frustration, irritation, where you've become sort of his or her emotional punching bag, where they're taking out all their stress on you, blaming you, they're quick to react and snap. And it's from that clarity that you then say, enough is enough, and you draw the line. You put your foot down. And this is going to take courage. You're standing up for yourself. You now have a backbone, you have a spine, you're not collapsing. And you'll see, confronting your partner like this, speaking your truth, it may make you tremble. It may make you weak in the knees. It may make you, I don't know what the expression is. Like where your voice is kind of stuck. It's like nothing comes out, or it's kind of clenched. But you stand up and you speak clearly, from that clarity, that I will not tolerate this anymore. And you're making it clear that you don't appreciate this, and you're not going to tolerate it. Now you see, if you don't speak up, if you don't draw that line in the sand, if you don't set that boundary where you say, this type of behavior, it ends now, then you continue to tolerate it. And what happens when you continue to tolerate this sort of behavior, when deep down inside you know it's abusive, it's disrespectful, it's dishonoring, it's not loving, then you'll feel this quiet resentment within yourself. And it's really this quiet resentment of abandoning yourself. Or just like I showed you the example at the table, where the divine masculine is honoring, protecting, guarding the divine feminine. You see this in this example as well. There's a part of you, it's the divine feminine, that is dishonored. And when you stand up with a spine, you don't collapse. You hold the line. This is the warrior archetype. You're not picking a fight with your husband or wife. You're holding the line. You're standing up for yourself. Holding the line of truth. And you're confronting the distortion. Because what you know to be true, this behavior is not it. So you look your partner in her eyes or his eyes, and you make it very clear that you don't tolerate this behavior. Don't talk to me like that. And it could be something very simple like that. You don't need a story. It's not, you're always doing this. And no, you don't. It's just, boundaries are clean and clear. Sometimes it's just one line. Sometimes you don't say anything. It's a look. And then you walk away. Right? Remember I said that in a lot of ways you remove access to show someone that they've crossed the line. And a lot of times this works out that you remove yourself from that environment. And you show them through removing yourself that they don't have access to your energy, your presence anymore, because you've left the space. If this space, this environment is disrespectful, then I'm not gonna sit here and try and argue with you and try and kick you out. It's a lot easier if I just leave. So then you walk away. You walk away with honor, dignity, respect. You didn't lose anything. You actually gained something. You gained yourself. You gained that respect, that honor. So you walk away with honor, and they get the message. They see it. It becomes, that boundary, like I said in the last video, becomes a mirror. It reflects back. But it doesn't happen overnight. A lot of that irritation, that frustration, that anger that your partner is using you as an emotional punching bag, it's because they are refusing to do that inner work, that they haven't turned within, that they're not self-reflecting, they're not seeing clearly. But you creating that boundary is like holding up to the mirror to them, reflecting that activity back at them. And that's the beauty of purity, clarity. That purity, it reveals distortion. That clarity, it reveals distortion. It's through that contrast. It's a demonstration. You're modeling respecting yourself. You might not even say a word, but your partner will get the message. But it's not instantaneous. It takes time. They might still play their games to avoid looking at themselves and make it about you. Oh, I didn't know you're so sensitive. When did you get all sensitive? All of a sudden, I didn't realize that you'd be so hurt by what I said. Again, this is a classic defense tactic, mechanism, pattern, where it's making it about you, as if you've done something wrong, because they don't want to see their own actions. Because contrasting to your embodied respect, your embodied honor, your embodied dignity, your love for yourself, it naturally, that's the beauty of embodiment, you naturally expose the distortion. You naturally expose the distortion. By you becoming so embodied, so pure like that, that you're naturally just revealing this distortion, exposing the shadows, transforming the darkness just by just your embodiment, that it becomes very uncomfortable for them. They have to either rise or run. Both are a transformation for your life. So that's speaking up for yourself. And that's the messy part, because it might look like, oh, that's conflict with you and your wife or you and your husband. But it's not. It's not conflict. This is just simply restoring order. And in a way, when you restore that order, it appears to be chaotic, because when you're restoring order, you are disrupting the distorted pattern. You're disrupting that pattern. You're ending that cycle of whatever it be, verbal abuse or just that pattern where they're constantly snapping at you, taking shots at you, where you're no longer their emotional punching bag. You're no longer their doormat. This is really embodying sovereignty. You know who you are. You know how sacred you are. And it's not like you are pointing the finger and blaming them or shaming them for that activity. You see it, that it's just a pattern that's playing out, a conditioning that's playing out. It's not actually what they are. So it's not like you are under the belief that that is who they are. You're seeing it. That's the mechanism. That's the conditioning patterns playing out. But you're not going to be passive and just allow them to snap at you every day. Be all, I don't know what the word would be, just on edge with you to the point where you feel like you're walking on eggshells. You're not being blamed for little things. Where you've just had enough of that. So this standing your ground. First you stand up. You speak up. You stand your ground. Because your boundary, like I said in the last video, it's going to be tested again. It's the nature of boundaries. It's through testing those boundaries that the boundaries are strengthened. And you'll see that every time your boundary is tested, it's strengthened. You're able to hold the line more and more. Your partner might experience it as rejection, but it's not rejection. It's redirection. It's redirecting them back to themselves by you holding that boundary, which is like holding the mirror. When they want to blame you for how they feel, and then take those jabs at you, where you've become a emotional punching bag, you put your foot down. You have that boundary. You hold up that mirror. Don't take it out on me for how you're feeling. You need to do that inner work. You need to look within and see, why are you feeling like that? So it's experiences a lot of this triggering in the relationship. This is friction I mentioned in the last video. It's this friction that it's like that's what starts the fire. It's like rubbing two pieces of wood together, two sticks together. It's that friction, which then it's like it gets heated, right? You'll feel that heat in the relationship. And that's what starts the fire of transformation, right? That's what you're feeling when it gets heated like that. It's the fire of transformation. It's through you holding these boundaries that they keep on coming up to that boundary. It's through them trying to cross the line and you giving them the consequence, right? It could be simply just removing access to your energy, right? Which looks like you walk away from them in that room. Because you're not emotionally attached anymore. There's no neediness. See, you've ended the codependency. This is why you're sovereign. And it's you embodying the sovereign king, the sovereign queen archetype, that then you have these boundaries. It's protecting this sacred space, the sacred self, the sacredness of life. The same way as if there was a temple, there would be a boundary. You don't walk in with your muddy shoes. You're not bringing a phone, playing YouTube. It's that noise that's the distortion. And that's what you're saying. We're not tolerating that. I'm not going to tolerate that distortion anymore because I'm living truth. And it's your embodiment of living truth that then is transforming others in your relationship. Others in your family and other relationships like colleagues or friends or your parents or all of this. But it doesn't happen overnight, right? It's another boundary here. I'll give you an example. The boundary, let's say you have a business, the boundary of your business. So again, when there's no boundary, and it's this kind of, oh, it's available for everyone, it's open for everyone. Because of that lack of boundary, you're going to get everyone. You're going to get everyone. But you're also going to get the people that are not for you, right? The people that are not ready to be served. So this is where your clarity comes in. This is where clarity meets compassion. Sometimes this compassion, let me just, oh, my partner's going through a bad day and I want to be so compassionate. So you're going to stand there and be a punching bag for your partner. No, that's not compassion, right? A lot of times we have this distortion, and this is a big distortion in spirituality, that we distort compassion with self-sacrifice. You're going to sacrifice yourself to be compassionate, right? You're going to abandon yourself to be compassionate. No, it's the same way. So in the same sort of thing with business is you're getting clear about who you want to serve. You're getting clear about who's ready to be helped. You're not trying to help everyone. This is the distortion, one of the distortion in spirituality. People with a spiritual business or, okay, they've awakened and now they're, what is it? They're on this big mission. Now there's some missionary wanting to spread the message to as many as possible. They want to heal the world. They want to, whatever it is, this distortion, confusing scale, or I should say, trying to scale their business, confusing reach for impact. Reach is very different than impact. Impact is about depth. Reach is about width. Right? You're reaching a lot of people, sure. You're getting to a lot of people. Well, yeah, just because your video is getting views, but views and reach does not equal transformation. Impact equals transformation, right? It's the difference between having a wide reach that's surface level. You're reaching many, but it's superficially, it's on the surface. Could have a smaller reach, but when you're reaching their heart. So you're making an impact, and it's that impact, it's the depth, right? It's like a asteroid like hitting the moon, right? That impact, it's that depth, right? You're hitting someone so deep, right? When your message lands, when your words, when your transmission, it's more than a message, it's more than words. When you're transmitting and you're reaching their heart, when you reach their heart, you're reaching the heart of everyone. See, the heart of the individual is universal. So when you reach just one person's heart, you're reaching the universal heart. It doesn't get any deeper than that. And that's where transformation happens, at that level, at that depth. Superficially, no. Superficially, it's just some change, some superficial improvements, right? So those that are longing for that transformation, those are the people that you want to serve. So you don't want to serve everyone. You want to serve those who are meant for you, those who are ready. And without that boundary, you let in everyone, right? It becomes a free-for-all, literally, right? If you have this model, it's a free-for-all. Pay what you want, right? There's no boundary. And what did we say before? What a boundary is as well? It's a threshold. It's an initiation. And when there's no threshold, then you see others aren't being initiated. They're not rising. You're allowing them into your space, which you don't see as sacred. If you saw it as sacred, you would have had a boundary. Now that you're seeing it as sacred, you have the boundary, which then is the threshold for others to then rise, to be initiated into living truth. Because there's no boundary, you're tolerating just anyone and everyone. So then the people in your business, they may be curious, but they're not committed. So having that boundary, having that threshold, just like I used the example at the table, having the boundary, it's your commitment to the meal. It's sort of like your buy-in. You know, if you want to eat the food, well, you have to show your commitment. How are you going to show your commitment? Well, you're going to put some cutlery, some plates, some napkins, fill some glasses with water. You're going to have to set the table. That's your commitment. That's your participation. That's where it's active. When there's not that commitment, then the space becomes passive, right? Just like people just passively showing up to the table. Oh, when's dad gonna bring the food to the table? And then brings the food to the table. Well, hey, you get me a fork? Where's my spoon? I want a drink, right? All of this. And it's left on one person, right? It's not being responsible for your own transformation, right? You think that you're going to show up to a space, a transformational space, transformative space, and you think that you're not going to have any sort of responsibility, you're not going to have any commitment, yet you have this entitlement that you feel like by just being connected in some way, your life is going to transform? Not at all. Not at all. So that's what separates the from the committed. There's a lot of curiosity out there. You know, just watch some videos. They're curious, and there's a lot of spiritual spaces, including the most popular ones that you probably know of, that allow this, that tolerate it, right? Where the space has become passive. It doesn't have that active transformation. That active transformation is the fire. That fire is the initiation. You're being initiated by the fire of truth. You walk through that fire, and that walking through that fire, it's like an initiation, it's like a rite of passage. That's what's burning the distortion. That's what's burning everything that's false. That's what's burning the old you. And so you see that boundary could look like as simply as a price. That price becomes that threshold. That price is not just money. That money is always it's a representation of something. It might look like whatever it is, $500 or $5,000 or whatever it is. But it's more than just money. It's representing your commitment, right? And by having that boundary, you make it very clean and clear. If you're committed, then it's sort of like, well, put your money where your mouth is, right? Because there's a lot of people that are saying that they want truth, they want transformation, but there's a lack of commitment. This is then a demonstration, then to get into your business, to then have access, then you're being asked of something from you, right? You're being asked for your commitment, where the money is not just a transaction. It's actually part of the transformation. It's actually what then initiates that transformation, right? How sincere are you? So there's a lot of people talking, not a whole lot of people walking. That's what is that line in the sand. That's what's that threshold, right? But if you have this sort of open door policy and it's so casual, then it's going to have that lack of commitment, where the sacred is then being treated as casual. Oh, let me just pick your brain about, something over coffee, right? Someone asks you, right? No. No, you don't treat it casually like that. Someone's watching the hockey game and showing up for, one of your meetings. They're multitasking. No, that's seen as disrespect. That's showing that they don't truly honor the process. They don't truly honor the space. So, just like I said before, with the table rule, same sort of thing. Those people then need to be removed. And there's only a time where they need to be removed because you didn't have the boundary. When you have the boundary, they don't even get in, right? So there's a sort of clearing that happens, and this goes for anything in your relationships in your life. This is that kind of, it's a cleansing, it's a purification, right? But once you start having those boundaries, they don't get in the first place, right? So they only need to be removed, right? You're removing their access to your energy because they aren't committed, right? They aren't committed. And you're no longer tolerating that. You're putting your foot down. I'll walk with you, right? This journey of truth, I'll walk with you, but I won't carry you, right? And that's what you're saying when you have those boundaries, right? That's what happens when you're expressing those boundaries in your business, whatever it is. If it's art, maybe it's not a coaching business or some sort of transformational business like I'm speaking of there, something similar to what I do, but perhaps it's your art, which is also, it's not seen as less than. It is transformative. It's just, have you seen that it's transformative? Do you respect and honor your art as art that transmits your heart? Do you see that it's transformational? And until you do, then you'll see that you won't have boundaries. It's actually from that realization of actually how sacred it is, that you're respecting the art, the creativity, that's the feminine, that you're seeing her in her radiance. And because you're holding space, you're protecting space for her, you're honoring her, you're seeing her in her beauty. It's through honoring her and protecting her that then she then reveals herself even more, that then she feels more safe. She feels safe because she's held in devotion, held in honor, held with respect, held with love, in love. That then you'll see that then she'll want to flow even more. So in your business, that could be art, seeing that very clearly. So then again, the boundary comes in, protecting that time, your creative time, and seeing it as this is my creative time. And you're devoted to it. Might look like going in nature to be inspired, where nature is the muse, where the feminine is revealing herself, inspiring your work, your painting, your singing, your whatever it is that you do, that's your art. That creativity is alive in you because you're honoring it. You've removed the distractions. You're not allowing that access to those that don't hold the same reverence for her as you do. This might look like increasing your price for whatever you're currently charging for your art. Perhaps whatever you're doing, you didn't even see it as art. Now you're seeing it as art. You're no longer conforming to the mold that people have. Oh, this should be this price, or that should be that price, or you should package it in this way, or sell it like this, or in over here. You see that sort of disrespects your art to sell it like that. When you have so much devotion, so much reverence for the sacred feminine within yourself, then you see that creativity, that masterpiece that's been created, to just sell that how most people are selling it, it's like prostitution in a way, right? It's like you're selling your soul. It's like you're discounting it, right? Especially even when people are asking, oh, can I get a discount, right? And you keep collapsing your boundary and giving them a deal. By giving them a deal, what are you saying? You're saying that you devalue yourself. You devalue your art. So you say, no longer am I going to devalue my art. No longer am I going to devalue myself. Because of that clarity, you've created that boundary, so you withhold that boundary when it's tested. Someone's asking for a deal. Can you give me a certain percentage off? No. You're no longer willing to compromise. By compromising your integrity, you fragment yourself. So you're no longer living that way, compromising, settling for less. Like this, you're seeing that you're embodying these standards, the higher standard of living. You didn't just decide to raise your prices because you felt like raising your prices. Raising your prices was the integration of that clarity that you have come to realize, that my art is sacred, that my art is transformative. And therefore this price, it honors the sacred within me. It respects the sacred within me. It protects the sacred within me. Someone asking for a discount, they definitely don't respect your art. Because if they did, they would pay what it's worth, your price that you have claimed. Like I said, that price is not just a price. It's symbolic, it's representing something. And once you start seeing how things are symbolic in your life, the material is symbolizing the spiritual. It's a symbol, the material, it's a manifestation of the spiritual, which then brings a whole depth of meaning and symbolism to your life. And this is then when you express, see, your price is an expression of your honor. You didn't just wake up and say, oh, I want to get rich today, and start charging more for your artwork. It's an expression of your honor that you embody. the sacredness. You're honoring the feminine within you, and that's why you have that price. You're honoring the feminine within you, that's why you, I don't know, you rent an Airbnb somewhere private in nature, and that's where you write your book. That's why you schedule your me time and go sit by the lake, listening to the waves. And you see, because it's being honored, respected, by having those boundaries that are made of love, you see it's like she reveals more of herself. When the feminine feels protected, held, safe, she opens up. She reveals more of her beauty. She radiates. And we live in a society that is suppressing the sacred feminine like that. So when you stand up for her in that way, through your boundaries, setting boundaries, holding the line like a warrior, protecting her, then she reveals herself more and more. And she receives you. You're able to experience more abundance because of her receptivity. So, like I said in the last video, it's not, this is the part that a lot of people, they bypass, mark it off, oh, that's still duality, like you transcend, the goal is to transcend duality. There's an aspect of you that transcends duality, yes. But then coming back to the world, sort of say, returning back to the world from your cave, the world that you renounced, you come back and you're no longer trying to escape the world, you're embracing the world. You embrace duality. And in embracing duality, you don't experience the duality like you did before. You're not suffering the duality. The duality, it's a play, it's a game. It's beautiful. It's experienced as union, this divine union of polarity, the multiplicity and diversity. You're experiencing the fullness of life. But this stage of restoring order involves setting boundaries, right? Where there was none. Because there was no boundaries, there was no structure, right? There was no order. There was no containment. Right, I mentioned that in the last video, that boundaries are also, right? They're thresholds, they're mirrors. They also contain, right? Just like the garden bed, right? It's containing both the flowers in the garden bed, but it's also containing the grass from not overtaking the garden, and vice versa, that the garden doesn't overtake the lawn and start spilling out, because you see where it doesn't have the boundaries, it looks kind of messy, kind of overgrown, right? So just like that, it's like your garden. You don't want your garden to be overgrown, same sort of thing. It's these boundaries are what make sure that your life is not overgrown by weeds, right? So it requires your awareness to look into these different aspects of your life. And you start seeing that you actually appreciate these boundaries, because you love that clarity. You love that clarity. And by having those boundaries, you're able to experience more of a directed flow. That the flow is just not so chaotic. It's only chaotic when it lacks order. But when it has the containment, the structure, the order, you're directing that flow into different areas of your life, and it's becoming more powerful, right? Direction, order, structure, containment, these are all the masculine qualities. Containing that power instead of having it spill, instead of leaking that power. So it's that containment. Which then it concentrates that power more and more, right? It's not this diffuse light that's just shining everywhere, but it's more of like a laser beam when there you have this direction, this purpose, these boundaries, this structure, this order. Now we're getting into the mastery. Which we won't go into that in this video. It's going to make it way too long. But you start seeing this and you start appreciating that, especially if you've come from what seems like the polar opposite of having all flow but no order. It can get too chaotic and too passive. I'll just go with the flow, just wake up and just see what happens, kind of thing, right? One can become very passive. Like I said, when it becomes too passive like that, it lacks that fire, right? And that's the fire of transformation. It's active. So this is where there's the balance, the passive and active. It's not just all passive, which I think I mentioned in the last video. It's not like you just I'll just swap doing for being. And now I'm denying the doing and I'm just being. I'm just gonna be, and most people associate being with sitting still and silent. And that's what my life looks like now. Nobody here, nothing to do, and just sitting silently still, watching life happen. Everything is happening, right? It's not like that. It's a full engagement with life, as life, full participation, showing up fully, present, living fully as the wholeness of life itself, right? That embraces the roles, not tries to escape the roles. You've escaped the roles, you've seen that you're not essentially the role, but the return is then coming back to those roles, but not being identified with those roles, imprisoned with those roles. And this is where you start transforming the conditioning. This is where you start experiencing sovereignty. But you don't have to just go along with the conditioning, right? Once you've gone through that growth and you've matured, in a way it's like coming back to the world and it's like there's a bunch of kids here, it's like it's a park kind of thing, right? And it's like there's no order, it's kind of chaotic, and it's like what? So you as the actual adult, you've gone through that rite of passage, now it's like you're an actual adult, right? Or there's a bunch of children because they haven't gone through that rite of passage. They're still boys, they're not men. They're still girls, they're not women. They're not kings and queens because they haven't gone through that initiation that you have. So coming back, you're coming back as the king, right? It's kind of like Simba in The Lion King, right? He comes back to restore order, right? When, I forget what it's called, I think it's the Pride Land, when it's sort of overtaken, when Scar was the ruler, right? That's the false king. He's not the real king, right? But when Simba comes back, you can see, and same with his father, at the start of the movie. So you can tell it's that presence. They have that majesty about them. It's a very quiet power, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not powerful. It's quiet because it's not trying to show off. It's not trying to overcompensate. Whereas the false king or the false queen, it's loud. It's overcompensating for what it lacks, right? It's not that it really lacks anything. It's that it's just they don't know who they are. When you come back to the world and you know who you are, then that's what starts transforming things, because you're no longer conforming and complying to the distortion, right? You're not supporting that way of living anymore, right? Because you know what's true and you're experiencing something that others aren't experiencing. You're not going to settle for less, right? Just because everyone else is doing it, right? So you're coming in and living at a higher standard, which then that, by its very nature of you existing, being, it actually transmits that frequency and it's confronting that distortion. It's not like you're picking fights with people, it's just that your very energy is the initiation. You're like a walking initiation. Every encounter with you is an initiation. And those who accept that initiation, those who walk through or those who rise, they start transforming. And they'll continue transforming as long as they continue walking, right? Like I said, those are, what's the saying here, few and far, right? So the ones who are running, that's what, again, in your life, I said it can get messy and you start seeing people fall away, or people they just can't take you. And what do people say? They'll say, it's like, that's too intense. You'll have this intensity, right? That's the intensity. It's energetic. They'll feel that intensity, it's too much. For those that are afraid, that don't want to see themselves, they're not ready, then they'll feel like that's too intense. And those who are ready, they'll feel this gravitational pull and feel like that's what they want. They want that intensity. They want to live at that intensity, that richness. It's like rich chocolate cake, right? It's rich when we say that's rich. It's rich because it's got this intensity to it, right? It's so intense. Just a small bite, it's just bursting with energy. It's like that. So your very presence has that intensity. Your very presence has that intensity to transform others, right? So when you come back to the world from your renunciation cave, and you see that what you're going through, the return back is actually that it's another initiation. Just like there's initiation leaving the known to then go into the unknown, there's another initiation from the unknown. It's not unknown anymore because you've realized the truth, but coming back to the known, the ordinary world, there's another initiation. And just like there's always a stalling to be initiated into the unknown, to cross that threshold, right? There's also a coming back, right? I draw it as a circle, right? Coming back, the realization of truth is just at the bottom, so it's only halfway. After that, then people stall. They don't continue walking. They what's the word here? They come to a conclusion, they close, they stop, and they don't return, right? And they stay in this kind of dissociated stage, isolated. They think it's freedom, but it's isolation. And because you're not free if you're trying to escape something still, right? So if you're trying to escape the world and lock yourself in your room and sit in silence all day, that's not freedom, right? It's definitely not mastery. A lot of people have this idea that, a renowned sage is a master. It's not. You can't be a master. There's no mastery if you're renouncing life. Mastery would be the full integration. It'd be embracing life fully, the fullness of life, the wholeness of life, living in the world, right? But not as the world. That's the mastery. You're not avoiding anything. How can you be a master if you're avoiding things? Right? So it's not renunciation, like many think. And that's what's a spiritual conditioning, where it idolizes that. Oh, this person sat there, and once they realized the truth, they just sat there, and then people came, right? Or this person just sat in a cave, right? That's that renunciation. There's still more to go, right? Because then there's the integration, and then the embodiment and expression, right? What I call living truth. So it's that return back to the ordinary world, that there is actually another initiation there. There's another threshold to come back, right? And so that's another phase, right? Most people who have realized truth, they're kind of camping there. I use the word camping because, right, it's a journey. So they're kind of camping there, and they haven't crossed back. They haven't returned, right? And it's in that return that's what's being asked of you, is the integration for what you realize. So you don't just continue watching satsang videos about realization and hanging around teachers that are only teaching realization. They're only teaching realization because that's only as far as they've gone, right? But there's more to it. And unless you actually continue walking and integrate, then that realization is incomplete, right? The journey of truth is incomplete if there's only been realization without integration. It's the integration which is bridging the gap from realization to actualization. There's no transformation without the integration. And you see, that's where it brings up a lot of fear for others, which then is that threshold. Just like there was the fear of the unknown, there's the fear of, again, the unknown, but it's a different way, it's different nuance, right? And it's meeting all of that human conditioning. But without meeting all the human conditioning, how are you transforming that human conditioning, right? So that whole return involves setting boundaries. It involves discipline. It involves order and structure, containment, clarity. It involves the expression of the divine feminine, expressing your essence, embodying your essence in the midst of daily living. So on that note, we'll conclude this video. I feel like it's complete now. And I invite you to join me in living truth.